WT360 presents the 2017-2018 Ag Review and Preview. As we take a look back at some of the challenges farmers faced this past year, then we'll shift gears, so to speak, and look ahead to what you can expect in 2018. The 2017 growing season certainly presented farmers with some curveballs, with very hot and dry conditions in the upper plains and northwest, hot and dry in the western corn belt, but a wholesale flip-flop in the east, going from record heat and drought last year to a cool and very wet season this year. The only reason the early challenges didn't do much for prices is due to Brazil having a much more favorable, cooler, wetter safrinha crop season, resulting in yields up a whopping 65.2% over the 2016 disaster, which had yields of 25.3% and led to the 2016 June rally. So let's start by reviewing how the WT360 year-ahead forecast did across the Corn Belt and how that played a role in yield. Up in the Dakotas, they had a very dry season, and the WT360 weekly year-ahead precip forecast hit 86% of the weeks. Yields in South Dakota off 8.7% versus last year, but North Dakota off a whopping 20.3%. The Cornhusker State fared better in the eastern portion of the state with a wetter year. WT360 accuracy 89% on precip, 77% on temps, with state yields up 1.7% versus last year. The WT360 forecast of a much drier and hotter season panned out in Iowa, with 86% accuracy on the dry forecast and 74% on temps. Yields off 6%. Illinois was also expected to be similarly hot, but much drier, with 83% accuracy on precipitation, 77% on temperatures, with yields expected to be off 2.5%. The state of Wisconsin was cooler and drier. Please pause this video to see the week-by-week trends. The Hoosier state of Indiana, cooler and wetter, with similar yields to last year. Kentucky accuracy was 80% with a very favorable growing season, yields up 9.4%. Taking a look at the eastern corn belt and the northeast, wholesale change with much more favorable season due to cool and wet conditions. Ohio yields up 8.8%, but Pennsylvania is the big winner, going from record hot and dry last year to cool and wet this year, and yields responded, up 26.4% versus a year ago. Moving across the pond to Europe now, they had a warmer and much wetter growing season, but Ukraine was the one area that had hot and very dry conditions. Yields there are off 2.7% versus last year. In case you haven't noticed, the weather back home in the States is making a wholesale change from last year, and we can look at a lot of climate indices and cycles that explain the big changes already taking shape now and in the year ahead. There's nothing at all similar about the oceanic indices with a La Nina-like pattern this year. That's a rapidly cooling equatorial ocean water versus last year when the ocean water was warming. North America's snowfall is off the charts as of early November, going from near record low last year to the most in 12 years. This in part explains the much colder late October and November, a sign of things to come this winter. The sun's also entering its minimum cycle phase, with solar energy the least in 100 and close to 300-year lows. Other indices are all negative as well, like NAO, AO, QBO, WPO. So add it all up, and we're headed for a shock this winter. We start with our snowfall outlook that shows the most snow for the United States in 4 years, with a pattern more similar to 2010 and 11 or 2013-2014. We also need to worry about some bigger ice storms this year, with overrunning scenarios from the Midwest to Northeast. Temperatures will obviously be much colder than the past 2 seasons, with the northern half of the U.S. both colder than last year and below average. Potential for a few major Arctic outbreaks is very likely, so expect your winter heating bills to be up 20% to 50% this year. Looking at the 2018 growing season for just the Corn Belt from Nebraska to Pennsylvania, there are certainly some hurdles. For a much more detailed and your farm-specific outlook, see your Farmcast report via daily email or online with your subscription. Now, if you're not a Farmcast user, you can sign up for our year-ahead outlooks on our plans page for $399 a year. The much colder, snowier, icier winter will extend into March, so there will be a lot more stress on your livestock and more need for bulk feeds with pastures covered in snow this year. Planting in April should be generally drier and more favorable, but risk for frost and freezes again in late April. After planting, May is warmer and drier, so crops may be slow to germinate, but late May, early June rain should get things moving. Some risk, though, that it's too dry in the south-central Corn Belt. There will certainly be more heat waves than this past year, and those are likely in late June, late July, into August. This should spare the pollination period with okay weather conditions. Early harvesting in September poses some risk for a much wetter season and early frost and freezes for the latter half of the month. And for our farmer friends in the Deep South, we'll need to watch for another active hurricane season, since the Atlantic Ocean is still in a warm phase and equatorial Pacific not likely to bring an El Nino, which suppresses the season. Still, a fair amount of risk for several landfalling hurricanes in the August through September time frame. For the world overall, the 2018 trends do show risk that Brazil will have a less favorable safrinha crop with slightly warmer but much drier conditions. This news could lead to some price volatility in the spring next year. That's certainly something to watch. To our existing farmer clients, thank you for trusting and believing in what we do, because we trust and believe in what you do. And to future clients, we want you to know what you get when you put your trust in our hands. For our $399 a year subscription package, you get a daily FarmCast report specific to your farm, weekly weather commodity reports, year-ahead outlooks, custom alerts, and daily 14-day snowfall forecasts. And that's not all, because it's not just us. We've assembled a team of potent players in the industry as partners to help us help you even more, including the folks at Ag Reliant and their fabulous Advantage Acre app, the good people at Morning Ag Clips, our friends at the Produce Marketing Association, the PMA, the Farmers Business Network, always a huge resource for us, and critical insight from the highly respected Bill Fordham in C&S Grain Marketing. Additional resources to give you even more information to be proactive, not reactive, to the volatility of weather. And follow fast-moving developments from our new partnership with RFD TV, providing more content and insight to help you make the best decisions for your farm. The farmer is our friend. We're in this together, and now more than ever, information is power. And we want to provide you with every and all resources to make you, our friend and client, as successful as possible.